Buddy's gonna start us. He's way better.
All right. Well,
He's way better.
Gotcha.
what's up, everyone? Welcome back to I don't know what season this is, but welcome back.
It's like a fresh season. It's like a
A
redo.
redo.
You got videos,
all type of stuff. Well, welcome back to the first episode of this new refresh / fake reboot season of the Uproar Leadership Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Buddy. We are here with youth pastor extraordinaire number one, Kenneth Cole Clark.
He just turned his head to show his hair off. That's why he did that.
And then we have
Youth pastor underling.
ultimate executive pastor, previous youth pastor extraordinaire.
I just hang out.
Pastor Cody.
I'm just here hanging
fake.
out.
That's honestly the fakest. If you hang out, then we're like
He's the last person.
vacationing.
He's the last person who hangs
Yeah.
out. He
We're
actually
just
has to
here.
work on hanging
We're
out.
just-
Yeah, he actually has to one thing
Really?
he's not good at is hanging out. So
There's a lot of people going to hell
that's crazy.
trying to change it. They're trying to change it.
True.
I mean, it's true.
Trying to change it.
See, some people have a hard time working.
Yeah, I thought
Some people have a hard time not working.
It's true.
I do get yelled at for that. Which I'd rather get yelled at for that than being lazy.
It's true.
You know, I think about it sometimes. Like when I stand in front of the Lord, what would I rather get rebuked for? You know what? You didn't rest enough, or you lazy son of a gun.
Probably a good middle.
It would
I
be
feel
a
like
good
I'm
middle.
scared of anything he says.
I don't want to rebuke.
I get it though. I get it. I get what
Oh
you're saying.
man, no. It's cool, but no, I'm excited to have you guys back. If you want, all those old episodes are still up, and I think there's a lot of great content there for you. From all my co-hosts, they did such a good job with their content. But this is going to be great. We're going to get really specific, really focused on singular topics, dive into them, because we want to help equip you. We know that there is a war for the youth. There has been a war for the youth. The worst person to quote, but one of the best quotes ever, is Adolf Hitler. He said, "If you win the youth, you win the future." And that's what the church needs to aim at. Not how do we win 5 kids, but how do we win the youth? Because we need to win the youth, the future for the kingdom of heaven. So we're here to help add voice to that, and I like it. We're not going to sit here as, hey, we're the experts in all things. It's like, no, this is what has worked for us. Here's what's not worked for us. And we'll clown on ourselves a little bit too, tell some failures, and hopefully encourage you. But today, I want you guys to be able to get to know these guys. Real quick, so you know, so Cole took over my role at our church about 2 years ago. So we're coming on 2 years, which is wild how fast that goes. So he's the youth pastor at our Horseheads campus. And then Buddy is this week stepping into the youth pastor role at our Ithaca campus, which is awesome. But they've both been doing ministry hands-on with people for years now. And it's great because they're young. But it's probably been 5 years-ish for the both of them with hands-on, discipling people, running services, preaching, doing all the fun stuff. But now they're both 2 years and then 1 week on hands-on. They're the guy. So I'm excited to ask them some questions about it and see kind of where they're at, what their heads at, and help you guys. So I just want to jump in and we'll just get raw for a minute. What are some of the things, and I like this, I think this would be helpful. What are some of the things that you found surprising in ministry so far and in leadership in ministry so far? What are some things where like, I never saw that coming? This is bizarre, or this was really cool, or this was the best thing ever. Just what are some things that you didn't see coming and it's been pretty crazy, good or bad?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I would say, I guess maybe one thing that surprised me is, probably like the complexity of decision making. I think off rip when you first go into, whatever position you might have to make decisions, it's easier just to be like, oh, it's easy. When it's time to make the right decision, you just make the right decision, right? But it's a lot more complex because sometimes we think, as long as we make the right decision, everyone will be happy and it's good. But what I've been able to learn, especially in being in doing things that and where you primarily are involved with people, that it's not that easy and it's a lot more complex and it's not as black and white.
So true.
Where it's like, yeah, you might directly know, okay, this is the best decision to make, but then you got to think of, okay, what about this group of people, what about this group of people, what about this group of people? Like, I've just, even not even just myself, but even being able to be around people like you two, and just being able to hear, like, yeah, bro, like, I can't tell you how many times Cole's like, bro, I know I have to do this, but there's gonna be so many people that are gonna be tight, or so many people are gonna be mad, or like, I made this choice and people were just upset, and it's like the right choice to make, and it's
Yeah.
the healthiest choice to make, and it's to make that the choice that should have been made. But it's like, you go and see, like, okay, it's not that easy. And that even in myself, that's why, like, I laugh at people that are who have never been, like, say, like, senior pastors, and they make it seem like it's such an easy job, like,
Why don't you just do XYZ?
yeah, why don't you
It'll
just
solve
do,
everything.
Yeah, why don't you just do this? I'm like, bro, you clearly don't understand. Like, it's probably a billion times. It's like this. It's like right now it's free agency in basketball, and everyone online is like,
Basketball reference number 1.
everyone in here is like, everyone is GM extraordinaire on Twitter, right? We're like, why don't you just go and sign this player? But people don't understand, like, it's a lot harder than just saying, I want that person, we're gonna bring them on the team. And it's
Yeah.
the same with all any level of making decisions, that it's not as easy as just simply making the right decision. There's so many other factors that
Yeah.
you have to think of. And so that was probably like the first instance for me. And if I can think of maybe a choice, I can't really think of. I think maybe like the first time maybe I kind of realized that was I don't know. There's been a couple of choices. Like, I remember one time when we were doing like Elmira campus, I remember one time, like, the running the buses wasn't healthy. So like, we were like, okay, well, we still have to get kids, so we're all gonna pick up kids. And
Yeah.
that was like kind of the best choice we had to make. And some people weren't happy with that. We're like, oh, I don't want to use my gas, I don't want to drive, whatever. My mom was like, well, our main goal is getting kids here, and our first option that we have is not the best option that we can make, but this is what we have to do.
Yeah.
And it was like, kind of crazy that I seen, like, a lot of people weren't that happy with it. So that was probably kind of
Yeah.
one of my earlier instances of realizing that decision making was a lot harder and a lot more complex than simply just making the right choice.
Yeah, what do they say? Like, leadership, you're gonna make people mad unless you're a politician.
Yeah.
It's like, if you can be a real leader, some people are gonna be upset.
Yeah,
with
you can't just always appease the masses all the time. It's
No,
not-
God, no, because you don't build anything ever.
No.
It's just always trying to make people happy.
But the cool thing is, when you make the right decision, longevity proves it.
Yeah.
Down, if you make the right decision, yeah, in the moment there
It's
might
hard.
not be people that, it might be
Yeah.
hard, there might not be people happen, but it always proves to be the right decision in the long run, which is always the trade-off. Is like, okay, people might not be mad lit about it
Yeah.
in the beginning, but people are gonna see the fruit of it
Yeah.
later down the line.
Well, I think like a great biblical example of that is Saul, where he kept blaming people. Like, he was scared of the people, he hides. He lets a king live, and he takes a bunch of stuff, and he blames the people. Like, he was always passing blame and not making the hard choice or doing the right thing, and it disqualified him. So, and I would say, even like, let me ask you this: in terms of being young and making the hard decision, I think a lot of people, they will discredit themselves or discount themselves and say, well, I'm young, or like that thing plays in for sure.
Yeah.
So what have you guys done to let that not deter you from making the hard choices? Or maybe you messed up and you're like, I'm young and these people are older, or I just started doing this. And what kind of deterred you from that mindset?
I think, honestly, one of the things that did surprise me, and maybe it's a little counterintuitive to thought, I think part of it is the culture that we've been raised in, but I realized in my life how little my age has to actually do with what's occurring. And I think that awareness has brought me to a place where it's never even really a thought when I'm making a decision. I mean, I've seen people who far outweigh me in years saved. I mean, what's crazy is, like, in a month, it'll be my 6th year being saved. It's like, I know people who've been saved for like 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And, and they're coming to me and they're like, hey, what do you think about this situation? I'm like, dude, this is ABCs of relationship with Christ. And you've been in this for 20 years. So, to me, I've realized that the only time my age has ever mattered was to me. And for the most part, there are circumstances
No,
where
that's good.
people do, but even in those moments, like with what Paul charges with Timothy, right? Like, Timothy's coming in, estimated age around 30 years old. And Paul tells Timothy, yo,
Don't
don't
let
let
it-
it despise you, right? And to me, that's
Okay.
interesting to see. It's like,
Let me ask you like
yeah.
this then. What about with friends making hard decisions?
yeah, I mean,
Because you
that's
guys served with a lot of the people that
Right.
you end up leading. So how about handling that? Because that's a big deal.
I just don't think that in my world, I think that matters no matter what age you are. Like I could be 35 years old and have a 35-year-old friend, and in their mind, age really matters. But I think what matters more, because I have interns right now who are older than me, but they don't have any trouble looking to me as their leader. They don't challenge me on their age. And I think it's more about the fact that they are my peer, or whether they are your peer or not. And your peer could be 25, 35, 30. I mean, like we have Bible
Yeah.
college students right now from like 40s all the way
Yeah,
down to
yeah.
like 18. And it's like they're in the same world.
Yep.
You know, they're going through the same things. And so I think age and with friendship is like this. It's like I've always been younger with older friends.
Okay.
And even though I'm younger, I think it's almost like they see me as one of them by wanting to put me on the level of their peer. And it's more about the position, the authority, and understanding the maturity that they have in their faith. And so, you know, still within that, like for me, anyone who recognizes my age as a validation or accreditation of what I've done or who I am is the one who has a problem with immaturity in themselves. And I'm going to put that aside.
Yeah.
And, you know,
So really what you're saying is like you just made up the mindset of like, this is what God called me to do. I'm running and I don't care.
yeah, I mean, anybody who is a godly leader, like if I'm sitting with you and we're in a conversation and somebody is like, well, Pastor Cole's just young and da 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 da, I know immediately in the room, I'm not the one who looks silly.
Yeah.
The one who looks silly is the one who thinks that they're going to attribute my inability to do something to how old I am is them. I mean, even scripturally. And so I would say like my current age only matters to people who've already disconnected themselves from growth, because that's how they view growth, you know?
Yeah. And you're right though, because it's cool because when you got saved, I remember this one guy was like, Cole and Buddy were like on a war path to see people saved together. It was nuts. It was like, it was nuts. It was so awesome, so healthy. And one guy looked at me, he's like, we'll see if he's still like that in 6 months. It's like, why would you say that?
Yeah.
Why would you? That's crazy to me. Like, why wouldn't you make a commitment to make sure he's still the same way in 6 years?
Right.
So I agree. Like most people's mindset is their own defeat, 100%. And then having confidence in the call is a separation.
Yeah.
Okay.
The world might see it different though. I mean, maybe
They probably would.
like in the world, like if we're communicating, like we have moments where we're trying to communicate with people who are not in the kingdom of God, they might see that might be more moments where I'm encountering actual, like I'm having to go the extra mile to establish myself as I actually know what I'm doing.
Yep. Yeah, like working with the schools
Right.
and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
100%. Okay. What was the most surprising thing for you?
You guys started just going in on what I was going to say, but I don't care. I'm going to say it anyway. I think one of the most surprising things for me was that my view of leadership my whole life was that in a way, in Christian ministry, and I don't understand why I just didn't put these two together. Like I grew up and my dad was a businessman, and everyone always used to tell me at school, they'd be like, oh, you got it easy. Your dad's the boss. He never works and he spends all his money, and he goes, my dad was working like 100 hours a week,
Yeah.
never missing a game. Like he was like the most hardworking dude I had. And I always used to get upset, and I would sit there and I'd be like, yo, like, no, my dad works hard. You don't understand what it's like to be a boss. It's way harder than you think. And it is. It's actually a lot more responsibility. And so my picture of a leader was leaders are the ones who get the most praise. Leaders are the one who have the easiest job. And that was a wake-up call with a 7th grade group. We didn't even make it. You know what I mean? Like we didn't even get behind a pulpit.
Yeah.
You know, my first sermon was at a retreat with like 20 kids, and like I'm viewing these people who are preaching to thousands of people and going from conference to conference, and I'm like, they got it made. But then once you start getting in leadership, you realize like it's tough. Like there's so many, like you actually feel most of the time like you're the least liked, because it's like I talk about it a lot of times with people, and I'm like, you don't understand what it took to get to Thursday. Because a lot of people love, oh, you get to preach. That's awesome. I would love to preach. I'd love to take that clip and post it here. But it's like, you don't get it. Parents during the week were mad at me because last week I challenged their student in a way that they didn't agree with. You know, students are upset with me because I told them that if you want to follow Jesus, you have to make this decision.
Yeah.
And then leaders are mad at me because they showed up 20 minutes late and I held them accountable, and it was the 15th time. And by this time, I'm going to call them out in front of everybody because you straight up don't care.
That group accountability is beautiful.
Right. And so by the time I'm taking the pulpit on Thursday, as much as I know I have a list of loyal companions, I also know like there's probably a greater list of people who actually are my adversary in context. And I'm probably in a position where, you know, I could find more people who are against what we're doing or their vision, and maybe not in totality, but maybe just in like
voice.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's like the comment section on Facebook.
Literally.
It feels like the world's against you, but it's only like 4 people.
Yeah.
Right. Literally. And in the scope of my life, you know, that was something I had to learn, because I really do value there's a lot of moments in life I've really valued what people said about me.
Yep.
And so I think that was tough, because you feel like, am I failing because so many people dislike me? But kind of what you were saying, right, with Saul and these leaders before, it's like, think about Ezekiel. I mean, no one ever liked him. Like no one in the nation ever liked him but God. You know?
It would be really tough to be like an Old Testament prophet. Right?
Yeah.
Because like they have these books that have lasted for thousands of years, but in the moment,
They're the crazy person.
Yeah, they're the crazy person.
My
like,
man's making food over poop.
this guy's always got bad news. We hate him.
Yeah.
Right.
He's been naked for a
Yeah, he's
year.
been laying on the side naked for a year.
Laying on
What a weird guy. What a nut. Call the cops.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, yeah, but I would say that's definitely one of, I think, the biggest, I mean, aside from other people personally, that's one of the biggest moments, I think.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And I think it always comes back to the surprising thing, at least that I've seen, is people.
Yeah.
People are wild cards.
Yeah.
And I think one of the healthiest things you can be for people as a leader, and in like just response to you guys, is to be consistent in who you are and what God has asked you to do. And if you can do that, if you can be consistent in who God has asked you to be and who you are, then those things all get sifted out over time. Like they realize, oh, they're young, but they're on it. Or, hey, they let people down but they're on it. Like, they got to make the hard choices, but they're on it. I think when you really put it in context like that, you know, people buy in pretty quick.
Yep.
I think it's pretty healthy. I like that. That's good. Those are good answers, guys.
And people try
trying.
to sun you all the time when you're young.
Yeah, people try to.
That's what we were just talking about today.
Yeah, that's
People
crazy.
really try to big bro you all the time in ministry, like, and it's the same people who would call you out for your age, but people love that. You know, we were kind of talking about like building, or about like discipling people, and it's like you'll remember in your life who's with you in the trenches, who was with you when it was tough. Like, I'm not, you know, like I was playing pickleball yesterday, and Trey was on my team. And we're playing together, and this person kept trying to give me advice. And it was something about the fact that I'm like, why are you trying to give me advice when you don't got the game down? Or like, you know what I mean? That was bothering me. And it was just like friendly competition. And honestly, what they were saying was super true. But there's something about like the fact that like at the same time, Trey would tell me something, and I'm like, I know he's on my side. I know he's on my team. I know he's rooting for me. No pun intended. Where his last name's Root. My bad. Where you're like, I like that. Like, I like when you're encouraging me. I like when you're building me. And it's not that I shouldn't have a soft heart towards the other perspective, but it's something to say that like, why does Pastor Cody have such a voice in my life? He was with me, and he saw in me what Jesus saw in me when other people didn't. And so a lot of people will try to like, they're like fruit thieves, and they like to come in like when everything's pretty, when the house is built, when the finishing touches have been put on, and they're like, look at what I was a part of. And it's like, bro, you were never there. You know what I mean? You were never a part of that moment. And I think it's important in a healthy culture to be able to see moments like that and to be like, yo, bro, like, I want you to build something, but you can't just hop on what everyone else is building. You actually got to be there for the unsexy, not fun foundation building, the getting left on red to get those moments. And like people who try to come in and say, and try to come in and be like, I'm your spiritual father, I'm your dad,
weird
I'm
also
your
to say.
bro. Like
That's also
yeah.
weird. Don't ever come up to me like, I'm your dad.
Yeah.
Right. But I've noticed being young, people do that a lot more. Especially like it's just something age, and they're just like,
It's a weird thing.
Yeah.
I think it's just like a weird like Pentecostal thing too. Like I don't think that lives too far outside of that like Pentecostal
yeah,
like type flow, but I agree, it is weird.
right.
It is very weird. Yeah. I think people just need to build, dude. They don't like to. That's the most important thing. And they don't, like, if you're a youth pastor or a youth leader watching, like, dude, bring people to the grocery store with you. Have people over for breakfast. I'm thinking about like the leaders that are still around, what we were doing with them. Have them at the house. Have them around. You know, teach them how to drive. Dude, I got in almost way too many car accidents teaching people how to drive. But they're sitting in leadership meetings with me now. They're sitting in boardrooms now. Like, that's the build.
Yep.
You know, go to breakfast or go to lunch with them and stare at them in the eyes as they lie to you for an hour that they serve the Lord and they read their Bible and everything is good. Like, do whatever with them, build with them, be with them. And that's really what we care about, is making disciples. Because if you're not doing that, you're not building nothing.
Yeah.
You're building something that will not live. You're building something that will not last. And we want to help you with that. That's our goal. We want to help build disciples. And I think it's one by one before it's city by city.
Yeah.
And that's the goal. It's like one by one, and then school by school, and then county by county, and just kind of taking it like that.
Yeah.
But we're going to intentionally keep these a little bit short. I don't want to be a 3-hour podcast. Maybe one day when we get one of our awesome guests on.
Yeah.
We also have some special interviews we've done recently that we'll be dropping for you guys, but stick around. We got more. We're going to be dropping stuff every single week. Make sure you go to the uproar.org, click leadership. There's also courses on there, and courses like how to recruit people to your team. One of our resources we use to follow up with kids called Crib that Buddy put together. There's a bunch of really awesome resources to help you accelerate and see more fruit and build more disciples. So that's the goal. I love you guys. We love you guys. We're happy you're here. Make sure you stick around for the next one.
Peace.